Married to my colleague's wife for 6 years. In a car accident, my colleague pushed me out of the car. After the car caught fire, he died, and I survived. My colleague's wife was 9 months pregnant. She was heartbroken and said the child couldn't be without a father. So, I became the father of the child. Vivian is very career-driven and capable, so I simply quit my job to take care of the child and look after her daily life. For 6 years, day after day, diligently and conscientiously, working hard without complaint. She didn't want to have children with me, and I agreed. At the police station. I don't know this person, he must be trying to kidnap me. When my son Charlie said this, I knew I could leave. In the public cemetery, in front of a colleague's tombstone. Daniel, over these 6 years, when it comes to your wife and children, I, Ethan, can say that I have acted with a clear conscience. I looked at my colleague's black and white portrait and said blankly. A sudden gust of wind blew. It was as if he heard my words. I nodded and turned to walk away. That car accident was entirely caused by Daniel speeding. I kept warning him, but he seemed not to hear. Although he saved my life. From another perspective, wasn't it almost the cause of my death? At this moment, I made peace with myself. Completely let go of obsession. Divorce? Is it because of what happened yesterday? Vivian furrowed her brows and looked at me coldly. If you hadn't treated Charlie badly, why would he do that? Have you ever looked for the reason within yourself? Am I not good to Charlie? I gave a self-mocking smile. Since Charlie was little, every time he was sick, I was the one running around for him. Every meal was prepared by me personally. Every time he fell, I was the first to pick him up. Just yesterday, because Charlie had a bit of a cough and wasn't allowed to eat sweets, he called me a human trafficker out on the street. I was then escorted to the police station by the angry crowd. That kind of humiliation is etched deeply in my heart. Overall, what happened yesterday was just a fuse. Similar incidents have been countless over the years. I shook my head with a sigh, took out the divorce agreement I had prepared long ago, placed it on the table, and signed my name. Then it was handed to her, exhausted, saying, "Sign it." Vivian remained as cold as ever. She sneered, convinced that I was just throwing a tantrum. I'll give you a chance. Stand in the yard for 2 hours as punishment, and this matter will be dropped, otherwise. Before she finished speaking, I had already stood up and turned to leave. I didn't have much luggage, just 2 suitcases. I dragged my suitcase and walked outside. Vivian's expression suddenly turned serious. She stood up, walked over to me, squinted, and said, "Do you really want a divorce?" I looked at her coldly, saying nothing. "I can't tell, are you after my fortune?" Vivian's gaze was sharp as she stared at me. I found it funny. Why do people always assume the worst about someone? I walked over to the previous table, picked up the divorce agreement, threw it into her hand, and said, "I'm leaving with nothing." Only then did Vivian pick up the divorce agreement and start reading. After seeing the back, she looked up and said, "You don't want the son either?" I raised an eyebrow and said, "It's not like I gave birth to him, and he doesn't even share my surname. Why would I want him?" Vivian was left speechless by my question. "Are you really going to divorce my mom?" Charlie appeared in the living room at some unknown time and asked me with a look of indifference. I nodded gladly. He snorted and said, "Let me tell you, if we get divorced, you absolutely cannot come to see me anymore, remember that." His expression was as cold as his mother's. I smiled and turned to Vivian, saying, "By the way, add one more thing. I have no visitation rights. Anyway, I won't be lacking fatherly love in the future." Eric, Vivian's first love. I have no idea how long their old feelings have been rekindled. I have no interest in finding out. Charlie is always smiling and well-behaved in front of Eric. As for me, I've forgotten when he last clung to me. This mother and son, in my eyes now, are ungrateful wolves that can neither be tamed nor warmed. This moment, Vivian and Charlie's expressions changed. Both of them looked somewhat hesitant. It seemed they never expected me to be so ruthless. First of all, there was nothing between Eric and me. And I'll ask you one last time, do you really want a divorce? Vivian quickly composed herself, her eyes sharpening once again. I felt somewhat indifferent, but still nodded and said, yes. All right, I will let you have your way. Without a word, Vivian signed the divorce agreement. How wonderful! When I arrived outside the house, I felt completely at ease. My heart was filled with a different kind of passion, ready to embrace a new life. I don't have much money in my pocket. I found a small hotel in the old town and checked in. The one thing I think about is work. I used to work as a translator for a company, fluent in English, French, and German. Although I've been a stay-at-home husband these years, my language skills have not only been maintained, but have improved significantly. So, there's no need to worry about work at all. People like me are considered rare talents. As the sky darkened, I started to feel hungry. There's a street full of snacks just downstairs, with many street vendors. I casually found a stall selling huajia rice noodles and ordered a bowl. Here you go, be careful. It's hot. I looked down to check the information of the recruiting company, only feeling that the boss's wife sounded very young. The NKU. I looked up, halfway through speaking, but the last word just wouldn't come out. The two of them just stared at each other, saying nothing. Several breaths passed. You eat first. The boss's wife had tears in her eyes and hurried away. I stood there dumbfounded, took a bite of the rice noodles, and couldn't hold back my tears. Selena. My girlfriend from 6 years ago. A name I have buried deep within my heart. 6 years ago, because of a small quarrel, we argued, and she went back to her hometown in anger. I was sent on many business trips by the company, and unexpectedly, I met with a car accident. Later, out of gratitude for his life-saving kindness, I ended up with Vivian by a twist of fate, working as a nanny for them and their son for a full 6 years. Selena came back from her hometown and tried to find me countless times, all of which I refused. She even later said that she was pregnant. How could I possibly believe that? I chose to block her directly. Since then, we have never seen each other again. To be honest, I feel sorry for her. Now when I see her, I know she is not doing well. Mom, why are you crying? A clear, youthful voice sounded. I quickly looked up and saw a petite girl gently touching Selena's face, her expression full of anxiety. I couldn't bother with the rice noodles and hurried over. The moment I saw the little girl, my heart was shaken violently. Those brows, those eyes, that nose bridge, it was as if she was carved from the same mold as me. This was a miniature version of myself, although she was a girl. I trembled all over, and the tears I could no longer hold back poured out like a floodgate opening. 6 years ago. She said she was pregnant. I blocked her. Then she raised the child all by herself? Just relying on that stall selling flour crab rice noodles? As for me, not only did I block her, but I also neglected her, pouring all my energy into someone else's child, and was even despised. I, Ethan, am worse than a beast. Selena was once so delicate and beautiful, but now her face, weathered by hardships, feels like a sharp sword piercing my heart. It hurts so much. A bowl of clam rice noodles, mildly spicy. The guest's voice broke the silence. Selena wiped her tears and began to work. Her movements were skillful, and her palms were rough. I stood there dazed, stunned and speechless. Until she finished making the rice noodles, I quickly snatched them away and then served them to the customer. You should leave. Don't disturb my business. Selena's voice was a little trembling. I felt her intense emotional turmoil. How could I possibly leave? Even if a knife were held to my neck right now, I still wouldn't leave. Uncle, you are so kind, helping Mom with the work. Mom works so hard. The little girl walked up to me and looked up at me. I hurriedly crouched down, looking at the girl in front of me, tears streaming again, and said, I will come every day from now on, okay? The girl jumped up happily and said, really? Of course it's true. I wanted to hug her, but I was a bit hesitant. At that moment, Selena rushed over, pulled me aside, and lowered her voice. Ethan, are you done? Hurry up and leave. I'm sorry. Get lost. I am divorced. For a moment, Selena was stunned. At that moment, business came in again, and she hurried back to start working. I don't know if it's just an illusion. I felt that her movements were much lighter, and she couldn't help but show a joyful smile when serving customers. I didn't say a word, just helped her like this, occasionally carefully teasing the girl. At this moment, I felt an overwhelming sense of satisfaction. It was close to 4 in the morning. The streets were already deserted. Selena, with her daughter, was efficiently tidying up the chairs and stools, and I hurried over to help. Why did you get divorced? Selena's sudden question caught me off guard. I owe someone my life. I've taken care of his wife and children for 6 years, and I feel like I've repaid my debt. Selena suddenly looked up, stared at me intently for a moment, then went back to work. She didn't say a word, but I understood what she wanted to say. Yes, I took care of someone else's family. What about Selena and the children? My heart ached again. She and I pushed the car together, passing through street after street, until we finally stopped in front of a remote self-built house. A small garage. I pushed the car inside. Uncle, goodbye. Will you come again tomorrow? The girl named Luna spoke, her voice both anxious and hopeful. I nodded repeatedly and said gently, I will definitely come. The girl liked me very much. Whenever she saw me, her cheeks would blush shyly, wanting to get close but not daring to. I knew this was the power of blood ties. Only one's own children are naturally close. I used to expect other people's children to get along with me, which was truly a joke. I stood downstairs, watching them go upstairs. I didn't dare follow, afraid she would be unhappy. I didn't want to cause her any more pain. Clap, clap, clap. I was crying and walking while slapping myself. My daughter Luna, so young, has to accompany her mom at the stall until dawn during a kindergarten holiday, and usually when Selena is at school, she probably has no time to take care of her, leaving her alone at home. Such a little girl, just thinking about it makes me feel sorry. And all of this is for only one reason. It's because she has an incompetent father. Back at the hotel, I could no longer hold back and sat on the floor, crying my heart out. Only after my tears ran dry did I take a deep breath. A look of unprecedented determination appeared in my eyes. I want to give them, mother and daughter, the best life. Otherwise, I, Ethan, am not worthy of being human. A publicly listed company. With my fluent switching between 3 languages, the interview went very smoothly and was quite good. As soon as I got off work, I hurried straight to Selena's building. I happened to see her with Luna, busy preparing ingredients in the garage. I quickly went over to help. Uncle, you really came. That's great. Luna saw me and was somewhat overjoyed. I went over and picked her up, giving her a fierce kiss on the cheek. You have to know, I had been rehearsing this move in my mind all day. I turned to look at Selena, but she didn't even glance at me, busy with her own things. Here, this is for you. With my other hand, I pulled out a milk dragon doll from behind my back. Luna grabbed it eagerly, giggling happily. But after playing for a while, she gave it back to me, reluctantly saying, Mom said you shouldn't take other people's things. His stuff can be taken, take more. Suddenly, Selena's words came through. Luna immediately blossomed with joy. Thank you, Uncle. Thank you, Mom. I put Luna down and started helping out properly. Over the years as a stay-at-home dad, my cooking and knife skills are definitely top-notch. Apart from Luna's laughter, neither Selena nor I said a word at the scene. Suddenly, my phone rang. I picked it up and was surprised to see it was Vivian calling. Without a word, I hung up immediately. But the phone rang again, and I hung up once more. The 3rd time, the 4th time, and finally I just turned off the phone. There was no emotional fluctuation at all. All my thoughts are completely focused on Selena and Luna. Now, when I think of Vivian and her son's true colors, I just feel disgusted. Aren't you afraid she'll get angry? Selena's voice was very soft. I shook my head and changed the subject, saying, "Thank you for not driving me away." I know. The kindness of this woman surpasses my imagination. Putting myself in others' shoes, I admit I can't do it. For Selena and her daughter, I just want to spend the rest of my life making amends. 7 days passed in the blink of an eye. Every day after work, the first thing I did was go to Selena's house to help out. Selena would save some food for me, then we'd set up the stall together and pack up together. Luna and I grew closer, and being with them felt like we were a family of 3. "You don't need to come tomorrow," Selena said through gritted teeth. I immediately became nervous and asked, "Why?" Selena turned her head, a look of pity flashing in her eyes, and said, "Go home and take a look in the mirror." I gave a bitter smile at once. Over this period, I lost more than 10 pounds, all because of too little sleep, and my eyes were filled with bloodshot veins. "I know this can't go on like this. Why don't you quit? I'll support you." My breathing was a bit heavy, my heart pounding loudly, and I looked at Selena with a face full of anticipation. Selena had her back to me, her shoulders trembling uncontrollably. I knew she was crying. Unable to contain his burning emotions any longer, he stepped forward and embraced her tightly. She began to cry, her sobs growing louder and louder until she was wailing uncontrollably. "Call me Daddy." Selena pulled Luna over and said, blushing slightly, "Is it a fake dad?" Luna seemed to understand a little. I crouched down and gently held Luna's arms. "I am the real Dad. Dad was wrong. Being away from you for so long, Dad is sorry." The moment Luna called me Dad, to me, it was like the sound of heaven. I moved into Selena's home. A 1-bedroom, 1-living-room house, not very big. The 3 of us squeezed onto one bed, yet it was the happiest moment of my life. Selena and I were honest with each other. This belated reunion made us cherish every moment, sharing the past 6 years with one another. It turned out that after Selena became pregnant, her mother wanted her to have an abortion, but she refused stubbornly and severed all mother-daughter ties with her. I really don't know how she managed to get through these 6 years. With tears blurring my eyes, I silently vowed to give him the best life possible. Finally, at my strong insistence, Selena handed over the tricycle stall. Every day after work, Selena would bring Luna to pick me up. I feel very happy and content. I worked harder at my job, and with my flexible and adaptable mind, I helped the company win back many customers, making my boss very satisfied with me. Outside the company building. "Ethan, are you done yet? Have you made enough of a scene? Why aren't you answering any of the calls?" Just got off work and was blocked by Vivian and Charlie. I was left speechless by those words. I was too lazy to even look at them and just turned away. "You," Vivian said angrily. "Dad, I have a parent-teacher meeting tomorrow. Can you come?" Charlie's voice came, surprising me a little. However, I didn't stop walking because I saw Selena and Luna not far away. "Daddy." "Ah, my dear baby." Luna ran over to me, and I scooped her up, then planted a fierce kiss on her cheek. Selena looked behind me, her face full of caution. "Who are you? Come down quickly. This is my dad." Charlie, who was chasing after, blushed and pointed at Luna as he shouted. Luna was a little scared, burying her head in my shoulder, not daring to speak. Seeing Luna like this, my face darkened, and I said to Charlie, "Remember, Charlie, I am not your dad. Also, don't shout loudly. Be polite." "Wow!" Charlie instantly grabbed Vivian's leg and began to cry. In his impression, I have never been harsh with him. Vivian's gaze switched between me and Selena like a knife, her brows furrowed as she said, "Ethan, so this is the reason for your divorce, but your taste really isn't that great." "So you had already cheated?" Selena's attire was indeed somewhat plain. 6 years of hardship had left her with a weathered look that was hard to hide. I looked at Selena, whose face had turned pale, and my heart ached instantly. I grabbed her hand and sarcastically said, "Same to you. You and Eric have been dealing with that mess for years, haven't you?" "You." Vivian, furious and flustered, pointed at me and scolded, "Where's your conscience? You ignore your own son but meddle in someone else's daughter. Are you out of your mind?" I gave a cold smile and said, "I've already said, this is your son, or you could say Eric's son. Don't drag me into this." I once overheard a conversation between Charlie and Vivian. "Mom, this dad is like a shadow following me everywhere. I'm really fed up. Uncle Sure is much better. I like Uncle Sure the most. I wish one day he could become my dad." Vivian was laughing heartily at the time. Although she didn't say anything, I could sense what she was thinking. Vivian looked at me with such cold indifference. To be honest, she had no choice because in the divorce, I wanted neither the property, nor the child, nor visitation rights. The saying, desirelessness leads to strength, is exactly this principle. Vivian took a deep breath and said gently, "Ethan, there's really no need to get two actors to perform for me. I see how you feel about Charlie. How about this? I'll have Charlie apologize to you for what happened that day, and we just let it go." After saying that, she patted Charlie's little head. I suddenly felt like I might have misheard. Apologize? These mother and son actually apologized? Living with them for 6 years, apology has always been a strange word. Even when they were wrong, the one who always apologized was me. "I'm sorry, Dad. I won't do this again. Will you come home with me?" Although Charlie was apologizing, his eyes were fixed fiercely on Luna in my arms, full of jealousy. It turned out that he wasn't thinking of me, but was jealous that something of his was taken away by someone else. I was at a loss for words and said to Charlie, "Sorry, that's never going to happen. You still have Daddy Cher who loves you. Go find him. The three of you will definitely be happy." After saying that, I hugged Luna and quickly pulled Selena away, making Vivian so angry she was stomping her feet. The next day, I actually received a call from Teacher Charlie. I replied that I'm not his dad and hung up immediately, with no desire to communicate at all. Not long after, another unknown call came in. It was Vivian, surprisingly. "What's wrong with you? You even hung up on Teacher Charlie's call. Do you know how heartbroken Charlie is? Can you still call yourself a competent father with this behavior? Are you being fair to Sue Duo?" That woman even mentioned her ex-husband, my colleague, which instantly made me angry. First, we are divorced. I am not his father. Don't you have Eric's number? Why are you coming to me? Second, Daniel did save my life. But that day he was speeding, and I believe you saw that in the investigation report. I not only didn't blame him for almost killing me, but I also spent 6 years wholeheartedly caring for you and your son. I believe I have fully repaid him. Please don't use him to morally blackmail me in the future. Third, don't call me anymore. With a pattering sound, I hung up immediately, furious beyond words. However, tomorrow is Luna's birthday. Seeing the message from Selena, the earlier displeasure instantly vanished. This is the first birthday I am celebrating for Luna, and I take it very seriously. As soon as I got off work, I rushed to the cake shop, carefully selected, and ordered a birthday cake. Then I went to the toy store and browsed around a few times. The next day, after picking up the cake, I went back to the toy store and bought all the toys I had chosen yesterday, carrying big and small bags as I headed to a restaurant. Selena was already there waiting for me with Luna. I was in a great mood, smiling brightly. Just as I reached the restaurant entrance, I ran into 3 unexpected guests. "TSK, TSK, TSK, I thought you had changed your gender. Still want a son, huh? Coming here to block the door, but whether to forgive you or not is Charlie's decision. I can't decide for him," Vivian said, seeing me with my bags, instantly raising her stance with a look of satisfaction. Suddenly, it made me laugh. Charlie looked at the toys and cake in my hands, his eyes lighting up, and said, "Dad, I'll forgive you this once, but if you do this again, Charlie will never talk to you anymore." After saying that, he ran over, trying to grab my toys. I grabbed the toy hand and quickly dodged, sneering, "Sorry, this isn't for you." Upon hearing this, Charlie's face immediately fell. I pouted at him and said, "Your dad sure is here. If you want it, you can ask him to buy it for you." Charlie immediately lost control and burst into tears with a loud wail. "Ethan, if you don't want to give it, then don't. What's with making the child cry?" Eric stepped forward, looking at me coldly. Vivian also came over, holding our son and comforting him, looking at me with a face full of disappointment. I curled my lips and said sarcastically, "I'm teaching him not to touch strangers' things recklessly." Before finishing my sentence, I turned and walked into the dining room. Never expected to run into these three people, truly unlucky. Walking into the small private room, Luna saw my big and small bags and cheered joyfully like a little angel. Look, one's own child should be the treasure held tenderly in the palm of the hand. The atmosphere was very harmonious, and the process was very enjoyable. At that moment, the door was slammed open with a bang. "Ethan, you really have a way about you. It turns out you did it on purpose to make me angry." Vivian looked at the warm scene of the three of us and instantly flew into a rage. "Get out of here immediately." I saw Luna's frightened little face and immediately became furious, pointing at her and shouting sternly. Vivian cast a glance at Selena and Luna, clicking her tongue, and said, "So it turns out that helping others take care of their wives and children is your unique hobby, Ethan." Hearing her say this, I couldn't help but feel a pain in my heart. For these 6 years, I have given so much for her and Charlie, yet she turns a blind eye and even calls my efforts a hobby. Heartless and ungrateful, nothing more. Bitterly regretted having been blind. "Who are you? Why are you stealing the things my dad bought?" "These are mine, go away. Don't you have a dad? Why are you taking my dad?" Charlie rushed over at this moment, pointing at Luna and said. Luna's lips pursed, but she mustered up courage and said, "Mom said this is my real dad. I really like him, and he likes me the most." "You're lying, boo-hoo-hoo." Charlie lost his composure and pushed Luna away with both hands. I was quick-eyed and quick-handed, grabbing Luna into my arms and scolding Charlie, whose wild child is so ill-mannered, trying to hit someone at such a young age. Whoa. Charlie, hearing me call him a wild child, broke down and cried. "Ethan, what are you saying? How can you say something like that? Are you crazy? He is your son." Vivian rushed over, picked up Charlie, and cursed me out. I sneered and said, "Sorry, we're divorced. Even if we weren't, he's not my blood." "You think I hired someone to act for you, don't you? Fine, then today I'll make things clear for you." I pointed at Selena with one hand and said affectionately, "Do you know who she is? She was my girlfriend 6 years ago. I broke up with her for you, but she was already carrying my child. She gave birth to my child and raised him alone, while I, worse than a pig or dog, have been taking care of you too, indulging your every whim, ungrateful as a white-eyed wolf. Come, take another look at Luna, my precious daughter. Does she look like me? She was cast from the same mold as me. She is my biological daughter. You'd better take your son and get lost. Don't ever let me see you again." I glanced at Eric behind her and said, "The three of you live your own lives. From now on, let's not bother each other. Waiter, manager, what's going on in your restaurant? Are you even letting people eat?" Those words left Vivian stunned and speechless. She finally looked Luna in the eye and realized I was right all along. They are exactly cut from the same mold. If we said we weren't father and daughter, no one would believe it. This time, she finally panicked. Before, she always thought I was just throwing a tantrum, deliberately putting on a show for her. After all, she had controlled me for 6 years. It's not so easy for my mindset to change. "Ethan, I was wrong. You still love me, don't you? Look, Luna is your own flesh and blood. You bring her back, and we'll raise her together." The four of us can live as a family. As for that woman, just forget about her, okay? Vivian clung to this lifeline, uttering words both ridiculous and pitiful. Selena stood up, looking at me nervously. I gave her a reassuring look, then pointed at Vivian's nose and shouted, "Get out of here." At that moment, the restaurant manager arrived and said to Vivian, "I'm sorry, ma'am. Please don't disturb our guests while they are dining. Thank you." The restaurant has to step in. If they ignore this kind of thing, once it gets out, who would dare to come and dine here again? Vivian, carrying Charlie, walked away in a daze. "I'm sorry." I looked at Selena with a heavy heart and sincerely apologized. Selena shook her head and said, "It's okay, as long as you don't leave me again." No, never. The day to handle the procedures at the Civil Affairs Bureau. I arrived early at the location. Vivian didn't cause any trouble this time and brought Charlie along as well. As soon as Charlie saw me, he ran over and clung to my leg, crying, "Dad, I was wrong. Please don't get a divorce from Mom, okay? I don't want Dadshire anymore. I just want you to be my dad. Mom said it's okay to change my surname to Yi. From now on, I'll be called you Charlie." If it were before, seeing him cry like this, I would have long since felt heartache and held him to comfort him. But now all my love is focused on my daughter Luna, so there's no room left for him. Judging by Charlie's behavior, he clearly knows who treats him well. I pushed him away and looked at Vivian, saying, "All right, we've come this far, so why bother?" Vivian's face was gloomy, her swollen eyes clearly showing she had cried a lot. She sighed and said, "I'm sorry, Ethan. I really wasn't good to you before. I know I was wrong. Can't you give me and Charlie one more chance?" I shook my head and said, "Vivian, you still haven't figured it out. What you lack isn't a husband. What you need is a nanny who obeys you and Charlie without question and works hard without complaint. If you look harder, you can still find one." The conversation ended there. Vivian hesitated to speak, but I no longer paid her any attention. The divorce certificate was finally in hand. I was overjoyed. Disappeared from Vivian and her son's sight at the fastest speed. Time passes like a fleeting horse galloping across a gap. The following year, I saved enough for a house down payment and bought a 2-bedroom apartment. The home was not large, but always filled with laughter, warmth, and romance. Selena and I held a wedding ceremony to make up for the missed one. We invited all our relatives and friends. Even Selena's mother was invited by me. Selena was deeply moved, holding her mother and crying uncontrollably. She knew that I had put in a lot of effort. That's right, I personally went to my mother-in-law's house to apologize and earnestly asked for her forgiveness. My mother-in-law still missed her daughter, and seeing that we now live happily, she overcame the barrier in her heart. The wedding scene. I don't know if it was just an illusion, but I saw Vivian's figure. However, I didn't care at all. Many years have passed. I heard that Vivian's relationship with her son was getting worse and worse. It seemed that Charlie blamed her for not being a faithful wife, causing him to grow up without a father. Vivian was also helpless, unable to find a breakthrough to ease the relationship. Charlie later got into university and stayed local, not returning home even once in several years, leaving Vivian to wipe away tears in secret. She came to me, asking me to play the role of father once more to win back Charlie's heart, but I refused sternly. I don't even have time to be Luna's father. Where would I have the time to be a father to someone else?